Hey guys, this is Eris from Asani and welcome back to a new video. Um,
Hi there, we have a question from Crypto Nerd. Do you have any property tours for Rio de Janeiro? We don't do like property tours ourselves, but we have a couple of partners. We have a partner who does actually a more generic Rio de Janeiro tour. It does focus on like more fun things to do, but I think it does give you a pretty good idea about the Rio de Janeiro dynamics. So, although it's not a property tour by itself, I think it does help you understand the different neighborhoods and, in the meantime, to ask many questions that you could have in terms of how the Rio de Janeiro society works, ideal locations for you to eventually buy a property, and so on. And we also have some realtors. They don't do like property tours, but they kind of work with foreign citizens. So when it gets to the time when you are serious about the process, we do provide such information, such referrals as part of our services. I'm gonna share a crypto nerd just so like you don't get anything out of my answer. I'm gonna share the contact information for the person who does the tours, right? The generic tour, so it's not a property tour. It's more like a Rio de Janeiro tour. He is from the US and he is a client of ours. So he does the tours, but he's also our client. We are him with multiple fronts in Rio de Janeiro. And I highly recommend this guy. He's a super nice guy in terms of, like he's a pleasant personality. He's super invested in terms of providing a super experience for those interested in Rio de Janeiro. So I highly recommend it. Here's his name is James Weldon. Is his phone number is on WhatsApp, so you don't need to call like a regular phone call. You could basically add James to your WhatsApp and see the things that he would be able to help. I definitely recommend James, a really, really nice guy. He does a great job at, presenting Rio de Janeiro. I think he has something like a 1 day tour. He has a multiple day package. Usually he sets up a base for foreign citizens in Rio de Janeiro. So I almost like thinking it could easily be like a reality show because there is this number of foreign citizens in a single location. Of course, he's going to rent a really nice place. And from there, he's going to, take people to all different neighborhoods in Rio de Janeiro for all types of activities. There are outdoor activities, like more countryside activities. There are, of course, like, samba, musical experiences. I told James, listen, I want to be in one of those tours myself, like probably in the next few months. I'm going to be joining one of James, tour, have the experience and see how is it, and probably, do some filming so I could also share with our channel subscribers. Crypto Nerd, any idea how much a two bedroom studio would cost in Copacabana, Ipanema, or Leblon area? Say budget of 250,000 US dollars enough to get one. That's a good question. So these three neighborhoods, they are substantially different. Copacabana is more of a popular neighborhood. I know that the name is unbeatable, right? Probably because of Garota. There are a bunch of songs about Copacabana, but there is also Garota de Ipanema, right? But Copacabana, in my opinion, it's not on the same level of Ipanema or Leblon, right? So Copacabana is substantially cheaper. So with 250,000 US dollars, you can get a lot of properties in Copacabana, right? You're not going to have much difficulty in terms of finding a property that you're going to like. Now, Ipanema and Leblon is a different story. Okay, Leblon and Ipanema, they are more expensive. I would say substantially more expensive. And even between these two, like Ipanema or Leblon, Leblon is more expensive than Ipanema. Okay, so 250 US dollars, 250,000 US dollars is going to get you a lot of variety. You can find a lot of nice properties in Copacabana, potentially even with, like sea view, right? Like you could have like a partial view of like the beach and so on. That would be for Copacabana. For Ipanema and Leblon, I'm not sure. Maybe you're gonna find an older type of studio, like a small studio in Ipanema. And Leblon is, just to find the properties over there, it's hard enough. So I think this budget would be a better fit for Copacabana for sure, and it could be a more of a long shot for Ipanema. And for Leblon, I don't think most of the realtors and real estate agencies over there would entertain a search for a property for 250,000 US dollars. Now, Copacabana is super cool. Is a super nice beach. One of the reasons why it's considered more popular and it does not command the same level of prices that you're going to find in Ipanema and Leblon. It may be because of the subway, right? We call it metro. Like so, it makes easier like for communities coming or for people coming from communities in Rio de Janeiro to reach the beaches. So the experience you're going to have when in Leblon is going to be, of course, more exclusive because you're not going to have the same number of people that you're going to see in Copacabana. And in Leblon, most people that you're going to meet at beaches, they're going to be people from this area. So, for instance, if you are walking around, chances are you're going to see a bunch of, like, I don't know, like TV show people or people from movies. Of course, they're more like recognizable by Brazilians who are watching Brazilian TV. But this is to kind of explain the reasoning behind, this difference in price levels. Moses Mibagwu. Welcome, Moses. My name is Moses. What is the rent of a new studio property of 28 square meters around Avenida Ibirapuera, besides Eucalyptus? Eucalyptus is probably one of the streets, like most of the streets around Moema or Ibirapuera areas. These are neighborhoods in São Paulo. Moses is not mentioning, but I recognize by the names that he's talking about a specific neighborhood in São Paulo City. Is a pretty nice neighborhood. I love Avenida Ibirapuera, Moema. And he also says it's by Ibirapuera Mall, which is super traditional. It has been there, I would guess, for maybe 40 years already. Moses, so it really varies price-wise, and I can tell you, some of the factors that are going to impact on price, and I can probably even give you some ranges. There are some like recent developments, and they add a lot of services. So, in addition to the building itself, they're going to offer pretty much every single thing you're going to need, to really dynamic lifestyle. So, if you need, for instance, dry cleaning, these new developments, they are going to offer like a dry cleaning in the premises. They are going to offer a gym. They are going to offer what they call it like a community type of kitchen, a fancy kitchen like with oven for pizzas, and where you can do some fancy nice cooking with friends and so on, like usually on the rooftop. Nice swimming pool with like LED lighting and a bunch of other conveniences, usually on the rooftop. So these buildings, they are usually going to command a higher level of rent. But if we take a look in the same neighborhood, sometimes on the same street, if you're taking a look at another property that doesn't have any of those conveniences, the rental price could be substantially lower. Okay, so let's think now about a modern development, like a development that was launched a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, or is it still, in the pre-construction stages. The rental could be just wide guess something like 4,000 Brazilian reais, okay, which would be roughly 800 US dollars per month. Okay, so that's a really, just a number, just so I don't tell you, no, it's going to vary, so I can tell you anything. So I'm giving you a number to give you an answer. Okay, so 800 US dollars, 4,000 Brazilian reais, and that's just a reference. Crypto Nerd, thanks for suggestion. Of course, you're welcome. I think Copacabana would make sense as well. I'm looking for an Airbnb rental of $2,000. You think an apartment near Copacabana Beach would fetch that kind of amount? Yeah, it's like 2,000 US dollars in Copacabana can get you something really, really nice. Okay, even if you're looking for like a three-bedroom apartment for 2,000 US dollars, you could get probably not like a beachfront apartment, because beachfront, properties in Rio de Janeiro, right? Like they pretty much, it doesn't matter where you are, is still a beachfront property. So they are going to command prices in terms of selling price, and as a consequence, rental as well. But listen, if you get something like a couple of blocks from the beach, you're still pretty close to the beach. Like you could basically walk 5 minutes and you're gonna be in the world famous Copacabana coast or beach, and all the bars and attractions, and then these 2,000 US dollars is gonna get you possibilities. I wouldn't be surprised if you could find a three-bedroom, most probably a two-bedroom, but it could be even like an older building, a three-bedroom apartment in an older building, a couple of blocks from the beach in Copacabana. Right, there is a question from Moses. It is too long for someone who invested $200,000 in Brazil to have to wait 8 years before you can citizenship, because I know ordinary asylum take 4 years to naturalize. Yes. So Moses, that's an interesting question. And nowadays there is a chance for you to apply with just 4 years. And this is a question we've been discussing over time. And some people, they ask us about this discrepancy in terms of interpretations. There are two interpretations, okay? The more conservative interpretation is like the 4 years for you to apply for citizenship, but there is a I would say a current interpretation that's being advertised by some law firms. Like, we don't advertise the 4 year track, and it basically works like this. You pretend that the first 4 years that you're getting is actually a permanent residency, and you apply for the citizenship after 4 years of residency in Brazil. And if you go by the books, if you look at the specific legislation for the real estate investment path, they are going to say first 4 years is temporary residency. After the first 4 years, you achieve the permanent residency. And that should be the correct residency to allow you to apply for the citizenship. But we know there are, some immigrants applying with just 4 years, and they basically pretend like they've been living as a permanent resident in the country. And immigration procedures, they are not super in Brazil. So what is happening is they are using like the law of the immigrant. Like, we have a specific law. It's a law from the Brazilian Congress trying to consolidate most of the rights that foreign citizens have in Brazil. And in this law, it basically says that someone living in Brazil consistently for 4 years is allowed to apply for the citizenship, okay? And so what people are doing, they are in the country for 4 years under the first 4 years as a temporary resident, and they're still fighting for this benefit. And maybe because Brazilian immigration is not super consistent, or maybe because if there is some type of a gray area, they are going to try to decide in favor of the applicant. The truth is, we know that there are people achieving the citizenship with just 4 years of temporary residency in Brazil through real estate investment. So our take, right, like if you ask, all right, so what is the conclusion? Whenever we are presenting this, this path to our clients, we're going to say exactly like this. Listen, most probably than not, you're going to be able to secure the citizenship in 8 years. However, there is nothing precluding you from applying for the citizenship in just 4 years. In other words, 4 years, you take a shot. If it doesn't work, you know that 4 years later, it's going to be the correct and right time for you to get the citizenship. So that's our approach, trying 4 years, and if the interpretation of the law is favorable to your application, you know that 4 years down the road, you're going to be able to secure, most probably than not, the citizenship. Another reason for this kind of, more safe approach to our advisory to foreign citizens is that we have a new administration, a new federal administration. And if you think about it, like the real estate investment track was created by the prior administration, right? And these two administrations, unfortunately, they hate each other. And the new administration from President Lula they are undoing some of the things that were created by the prior administration. Okay, so nobody knows for sure how this change in administrations is going to exactly impact the procedures, but I would say, like maybe they are going to, instead of being super accommodating and letting people to obtain citizenship in just 4 years, maybe they're going to say, listen, now that we are trying to distantiate ourselves from the prior administration, we're going to make sure that people actually follow the law. They wait for 8 years instead of just the 4 years. All right, another question from Crypto Nerd. Um, how much, how many days of stay do I need every year to maintain the residency and qualify for the citizenship? So there are basically two requirements, right? One requirement is for you to maintain the residency, and then there is a separate requirement for the citizenship. And to maintain the residency, it's pretty easy. You just need to stay in Brazil 14 days for every 2 years, okay? And this is for the first 4 years of your stay in Brazil. And that's why we say it's temporary, right? It's temporary because uh, Brazil wants to see how you're gonna handle these first 4 years, and therefore temporary. And so for the first couple of years, you need to stay 14 days. It does not need to be consecutive, so you could choose, to come to Brazil for a single trip of 14 days or two trips of 7 days, or I don't know, multiple trips, as long as altogether you achieve 14 days for the first 2 years. And then for the second period of 2 years is going to be pretty much the same thing. So they're going to look at the first period, and then they're going to look at the second period, and they want to see that you stayed in Brazil for 14 days every couple of years, okay? Now, after these 4 years, when you renew your residency, you're going to get the permanent residency, right? And the permanent residency, at least from the law, from the legal text supporting the real estate investment track, the requirement is that you keep the property that you bought, right? So once you achieve the permanent residency, the idea is that as long as you continue to own the property, you don't need to continue to stay in Brazil 14 days for every couple of years. And interesting is that some people, when they get the RNM card, which is the residency card, they are going to see like the expiration date. For most of the applicants, there is not going to be an expiration date, meaning that your card is going to be good for as long as you don't do anything wrong in the country, right? And the idea is that this is like the permanent residency. Although technically the immigration is not going to call permanent residency anymore, they just call it undetermined. And the reason for trying to avoid saying that it's permanent is because if they decide you did something wrong and they want to take away the residency from you, it's easier to do so if they're not calling permanent, because when you say permanent, it does give an impression that you're going to have this thing forever. Now, from the citizenship perspective, there are two tracks. One track is going to be the 4 years, and that's actually the one available for permanent residents. And you need to stay in Brazil for 3 years out of the 4 years, right? Now, if in the meantime you happen to marry with a Brazilian, or have a Brazilian child, there's going to be another possibility for you. And this possibility is going to be what we call it a fast track. And the fast track is you could apply in just a year of permanent residency in Brazil. And the requirement is for you to stay, if I'm not mistaken, like you can stay outside of the country for a maximum of 2 weeks, right? So basically, you need to stay an entire year in Brazil. And if you do so without traveling more than a couple of weeks, I'm not exactly sure on the couple of weeks, but the concept is, stay in Brazil for a whole year. And again, if you have like a Brazilian spouse or a Brazilian child, and then you would be able to apply for the citizenship with just a single year in Brazil. Crypto Nerd has a question. Thanks for mentioning the child route. Of course, does adoption also count as a way towards Brazilian citizenship? That's a great question, Crypto Nerd. Actually, adoption nowadays, from a constitutional perspective, is the exactly same thing as as having a natural. Yes, if you adopt a Brazilian child, that's gonna work. That's gonna provide with a benefit for applying for the citizenship under the fast track, right? Just important to highlight that with the adoption it comes all the natural strings in terms of like financial responsibility, providing support, just like if this was your natural child. But the short answer is yes. If you adopt a Brazilian child, you're gonna be entitled to apply for fast track to achieve Brazilian citizenship in just a single year. Requirement that is worth highlighting is the need for you to speak like fluent Portuguese. Not like, I would say speak just like as a native Brazilian would speak, but they are expecting you to be able, for instance, to write an essay in Portuguese, to answer questions during your interview for citizenship in Portuguese, to clearly express yourself in Portuguese. What are the things that are not going to pay super attention, right? Like, I mean, in Portuguese, I'm not sure if you know, but there are genders for words. So we have like masculine words and feminine words. And then everything that you have in the language construction is gonna need to match, right? For instance, like the immigration, like immigration for us is a feminine word, a imigração. So we don't say the immigration, we're gonna say a, like a, letter A, and then imigração, meaning we are saying that imigração is a feminine word. So the article before the word the noun imigração is going to be a feminine article as well, right? So as you imagine, like for someone coming from the States who never thought about words and nouns with genders, like how do you, guess which gender is this word, right? So this is just by experience, just like, paying attention to the point where you know by heart. And we know this is pretty difficult. So what happens is it's super common for foreign citizens, like when are speaking in Portuguese, they are going to mix up words genders. And in our experience, like this is going to be something minor. The immigration is not going to be, of course, expecting you to know the gender of every single word. And in this sense, they're going to kind of turn a blind eye, at least, when it comes genders when, writing and speaking in Portuguese. Dr. Orange, thank you for participating. Is there any possibility that I could buy a property, be granted temporary residency, then later the government changes the rules and I am no longer eligible for temporary permanent residency? So, in terms of immigration, there are, like two perspectives when answering your question. The first perspective is countries, they have a lot of discretion in terms of how to, create and maintain their laws. So I would say from at least, a theoretical perspective, yes, it would be possible for the government to say, you know what, you're bad, we don't want to offer this anymore, and you bought the property. If you don't like it, sell it, and that's your problem, right? Like, so this is from a theoretical perspective. The Brazilian government could very well do so, okay? Now, from a practical perspective, countries, they try to avoid such harsh decisions, and they try, to give what you were expecting. At least if you got started with an application, right? So what do I mean by that? I mean that if you bought a property and then you apply for the benefit, and when you apply, the immigration law is still there. If they change it later on, they are going to try to preserve the benefit for all of those who at least started the process. Okay. This means you bought the property, you got the new title showing your name on it, you gathered every single document, and you actually filed the application. My guess is that the Brazilian government would say, you know what, like if you applied, we're gonna preserve the benefit for you because like you relied on something that was current, and you're good. Now, if you are one day away of filing the application and the Brazilian government does change the law abruptly, you are out of luck because they're not going to, of course, open an exception on a case-by-case basis. Another thing to consider is that at least like Brazilian immigration, it is customary for the Brazilian government to give a heads up in terms of when things are going to change. So we have a change that's going to happen about like 30 days from today. Today is December the 10th. So we're talking about January the 10th. That's when U.S. and Canadian citizens, they are going to need once again to get a visa before flying to Brazil. Okay, so if a U.S. citizen travels today to Brazil, all they need is a flight ticket, and they can get into the country under a waiver, meaning that they don't actually have any visas, right? Like some people, they say, oh, you actually have like a free visa or you get an automatic visa. No, you don't get any visa. You just fly to Brazil with no visa at all if you are from the US or Canada under a waiver, right? But again, the waiver came from the prior administration. The new administration is undoing something that the prior administration did. And they are now requiring visas for US citizens. Now, they gave, like, I think it was about 6 or 7 months of notice before changing the rule. So we knew that this was coming, several months ago. They never changed like this thing overnight. First, they said they would start requiring visas from US and Canadian citizens in October. And when it got to September, they said, you know what, we're going to postpone and they're going to need to present a visa only on January the 10th. So there was ample notice. There was no surprises. So I would expect if the current administration is going to change the rules, I would expect them to do the same, right? They would say, listen, we don't think that the real estate investment visa is in our best interest. Traditionally, Brazil does not sell visas, right? Does not sell residency, and we're going to get rid of it. So, if you have something in the pipeline, expedite your efforts. Otherwise, let's say on July the 1st of 2024, we're going to close the door, okay? So I would expect something like that to happen instead of, just like an overnight change. Theory, they could do that as well. Okay, we have a question from Tucan's View. Tucan's View is asking, is it possible to transfer crypto to Brazil to buy property? Or should it be through a bank account? So, Tucans, I'm not sure if you're asking, if you're planning to apply for the real estate investment visa, because the answer to your question is going to depend whether you are applying for the residency or not. Okay, if you're going to apply for the residency, yes, it should be through a bank account. This requirement is actually in the law for the real estate investment visa residency in Brazil, and crypto is not going to work. Okay, now if you're just buying a property like here at the firm, many clients buying properties because they want to get the residency, but I would say it's probably a 50-50 distribution. So we also have a bunch of clients who are just buying property because they want to have, a place when they're visiting Brazil. They come often to Brazil. They come, I don't know, like every other year, or they come once a year. Some clients, they come twice a year, and they just want a property where they can leave their stuff, and keep their property in one place. They can kind of create a more in-depth experience, because when you have your property, it's not like just a visitor, right? Like you are almost, even if you're not like a legal resident, it starts to change your dynamic in Brazil because you own property, because you start to see the same neighbors every time. So the quality of your relationship with Brazilians, it tends to improve, and it tends to be something deeper than just a hi, right? Which is usually the case when you are visiting on, for instance, using an Airbnb. Now, if you're just buying a property for the sake of buying, not applying for the long-term residency, the legal residency, in theory, you could use cryptocurrency to buy the property, okay? Now, we had a client a while ago. He couldn't find any seller who was willing to receive crypto. So what he did sell the cryptocurrency in the US, and there was a challenge that he couldn't because he basically got rich investing in crypto. Like he didn't have, he wasn't, I don't know, there was some issue with his tax returns. he couldn't show. I don't know if he wasn't like fighting the tax returns, showing everything that he made. But I know like we couldn't get him approved to send the funds to Brazil because like the bank would ask for his tax returns. His tax returns would not show the kind of money he was sending to Brazil. So what he did, it was to get his sister to send the money to Brazil, and it was basically structured in Brazil as a donation. His sister was donating the money to him in Brazil, and they were paying the donation tax in Brazil. So, from the Brazilian authorities' perspective, this was a clean transaction, as clean as he could get, because his sister, she did file tax returns. She was making a lot of money, so the Brazilian bank was also happy. Brazilian bank saw the tax returns. The authorities saw the donation tax being paid. Everybody was happy, and our client was happy as well. And he did buy a penthouse in Salvador, Bahia, in the northeast of Brazil. And he was a crypto guy. But even though he wasn't applying for the residency, he couldn't send the crypto because basically nobody wanted to receive crypto, which is understandable. And if you think so, a Brazilian is selling the property to someone abroad. This alone, it does bring some concerns, like, sellers in Brazil usually they are experienced in doing real estate transactions with other Brazilians, but not foreign citizens, right? And then on top of a foreign citizen, you have someone trying to buy with crypto. I would say it is understandable when sellers shy away of a deal like this. All right, so we are approaching 1 hour timeline in this live. So if you guys wanna, post your last questions, we're gonna be heading towards the end of our live. I see here there is one question from Crypto Nerd. Childbirth, marriage route, one can apply citizenship in 1 year. Correct. That's exactly the case, Crypto Nerd. But how long until you get the physical passport, and are the language requirements lesser in this case? No, the language requirements, they're not going to change. Okay, the language requirements are going to be exactly the same because that's one thing that Brazil does require the same across the board. Like if you have a Brazilian child or Brazilian spouse, you get to apply earlier than otherwise, but you still need to speak, advanced level of Portuguese. And so I think I get your point. I mean, you can apply in 1 year, but would I have like an enough level of spoken and written Portuguese to pass the test? That's a great point. And that's why some people, even though they do have the possibility of applying in a single year, they're going to end up waiting several years because they basically need to learn Portuguese before sitting for the language exam. That's a good point. Tucan's view, thank you. A pleasure to have you in our live, Tucan. We're gonna have more lives. We being pretty steady in terms of getting our lives on Wednesdays and Sundays. We're gonna have on Wednesdays and Sundays later in the month. I know there are gonna be the holidays. I hope you guys are enjoying the holidays. But if you wanna drop by to watch our live, to see our live, you're gonna be welcome to do so. We're gonna have a live on this Wednesday in particular, but we're gonna have a live next Sunday, the same time, and we're gonna have a live on the next Wednesday. So we don't have a live on December the 13th, but we have a live on December the 17th, we're gonna have Wednesday the 20th, okay, and live on December the 24th, right? So I hope you guys are not too busy. You can drop by. It's gonna be Christmas Eve, right? December the 24th. We're gonna be live. There is another live on December the 27th, which is a Wednesday. And then on December the 31st, which is the New Year's Eve, I'm not sure if we're going to have the live or not. But if you check on our channel, we do publish the upcoming lives in upfront, so you always know upfront if there's going to be a live or not. Okay, Crypto Nerd, you're pretty welcome. This is going to be the last question. Skip Lulu, if a person has a passport of Mercosur associated country, what is the way to get Brazil residency card and citizenship? Are they different than others? Yes. So actually for Mercosur, let's say if you are from Argentina, if you are from Uruguay, there is basically a very fast track for you to get residency, and it's basically just applying and showing that you do meet like the minimum requirements. For instance, you have no serious criminal records and so on. But basically, you don't need to buy a property, and you don't need to marry a Brazilian or to have a Brazilian child. You can basically just apply for the residency card. Okay, there is still a procedure, right, which we recommend get an attorney so you do it right, and you don't risk losing this opportunity, because it's really more. It's not easy, but it's really straightforward, and it's a benefit of being a citizen of another South American country. Okay. Citizenship wise, no, there are no advantages. You're going to need to follow the same requirements applicable to other foreign citizens. So you get a super advantage for the residency, but you don't get any advantage for the citizenship. Sense. All right. So thank you again for everyone who joined us today. I hope to see you in our next live stream, and have a blessed week ahead.